Hey, you guys, welcome to the first episode of Higher Perspective Understandings. This podcast, I'm not sure how often I'll be making episodes on here, but I do feel that Spirit is calling me to speak on certain topics. And when I have the time, I will do the best I can to deliver these messages to whatever collective is meant to hear them. The first topic that Spirit heavily seems to want me to communicate or connect with you guys about is related to twin flame relationships. Now, as I discuss this topic, you may not hear me use that term very much. Even if I do other videos and things like that, you may not hear me say it because I actually usually use the term divine counterpart, mainly because I feel like there's a lot of just dogma and complicated energy connected to the term twin flame, and words have power. I do feel like the term divine counterpart has a much higher vibration or a pure understanding. It hasn't been bogged down with so much just confusion, really. So if you do hear me saying divine counterpart throughout it, that's it's what spirit has helped me understand it to be is the same thing. And so I really just use the terms interchangeably, or not really. I pretty much just say divine counterpart. The first thing I want to talk about on this topic is that spirit has led me to understand. I know some people believe that there's only a certain number of twin flames in this world, um, that not everybody has one, but spirit has led me to understand that that is not the case. This is not just from a spiritual standpoint, it's also to understand this from a scientific standpoint as well. Everyone has a divine counterpart. It's simply and the basis understanding of science. Nothing can exist in the 3D on this 3D plane without an equal opposite. So you can't have an up without a down, a left without a right, a you without the other you. And with that being said, not everybody's necessarily going to either come into contact or meet their divine counterpart in this lifetime, but it doesn't mean that they don't have one. Now, for the individuals who have come in contact or connected with their divine counterpart, spirit has a message for you. I know there are people that are frustrated or um, anxious or feel like maybe their connection is one where they're not meant to come into union with their divine counterpart. However, spirit has led me to understand that that is not the case. It's the message that it's given me is that it would never bring such an intense understanding to you and um not be preparing or planning to deliver you all that you deserve and the understanding of that connection. So if you've met your twin flame or come into contact with your divine counterpart in this lifetime, then spirit has told me that you are meant to come into union. However, what spirit has said is spirit has shown me and communicated to me a lot is that there is so much confusion around how to get to this understanding, what is necessary, and it's pinpointed a key understanding of why union may be so hard for a lot of people to come into, you know. And well, there's a couple of key things. There's two, I believe. Yes. If you hear me pausing, it's because I'm listening to spirit as I'm communicating this to you so I can get the message as clear as possible. So, the two key understandings that spirit seems to want to share is that coming into union with your counterpart is not necessarily meant to be this whole group understanding. It is a sacred understanding between you, your counterpart, and spirit. You three, you're your own holy trinity. You're your own understanding of oneness with spirit. That is what that connection is meant to be, in a sense. And so there's not meant to be all of these energies bogged down. I know it can be hard. I know it can be very hard when you want to feel connected or see, hey, this person is on this journey and this person is on this journey. But at the same time, every one of you are unique. Your journey to union is going to be different from somebody else's. It's a one-on-one understanding. It really is. It's not. I know there are people that do like a lot of like group sessions or group huddles and things where they talk about this type of connection, and spirit has told me that that's not necessarily it's not to say that there's anything wrong with that if that's what you feel you need at this time, but at some point you are meant to just step away and be in oneness with spirit while it teaches you and it guides you towards your counterpart in that understanding, and it's not to say you won't meet people or know people that are in these connections, but it's a sacred thing that you are kind of meant to protect and move in a subtle way. You know, it's not necessarily meant to be blared out. It really is a sacred understanding. This is just what spirit has led me to understand. The second thing about this is that there is a lot of connecting with your divine counterpart that is spoken about, a lot of coming into union that's spoken about from a quote unquote spiritual understanding, healing all your blockages in a spiritual sense and all the rest of those things. And the reason why I say I use air quotes or say quote unquote is because the other issue that spirit has discussed with me is that people really, really disconnect from and fail to realize that the 3D world is also spiritual. There is nothing that is not spirit. So if there is nothing that is not spirit, then the 3D world is spiritual too. And a lot of times, the true blocks that you're needing to remove, not saying that you're not needing to do energy work and heal. It's a balance of understanding. But people are deep diving into the 5D and 4D and forget about the 3D understanding, balancing it out. So maybe you've done a lot of healing and done a lot of energy work on yourself, but you haven't gotten your finances together. Maybe you haven't gotten a divorce yet from whoever you're with. Maybe you haven't created space. You haven't moved into your own place away from your current partner, or away from the family environment that you're in that is blocked to the connection. There's so many understandings there that exist in the 3D world that you may need to clear in order to make space for this connection. And it's not this is just from what I've seen and what spirit has said to me. It's not talked about enough, that the true understanding, because the spiritual aspect of it, all of the energy work understandings, it still requires you to connect and balance within the 3D, that that masculine world. That world is harder, like that understanding of spiritual energy. The 3D spiritual energy is tough. It's tough to move, you know it's tough, like it's tough to just take care of some of those things. But the more you take care of those things, the more you create space for the connection, the more you move towards what you want. There's some people that may not be well versed at all in spirituality, as far as quote unquote spirituality, the way that a lot of people see it. Because again, the 3D world is spiritual. 5D, the 4D, fine. But the 3D world is spiritual. And the thing about it is that those individuals just coming on this journey, if you're listening to this, don't get lost in that understanding. I'm not saying not to connect with whatever spiritual understanding is calling to you, but it's important to do it in balance. In balance, because you must take care of your 3D world. You must take care of your 3D spiritual understanding and balance that out so you can make room for this connection. This is not a connection um, like a any of the others. All those other connections are karmic partners. This is not like that. This is not a connection where you can be on your last dollar and think that spirit is going to say you're ready for union. This is not a connection where you can be living in an environment that is not conducive to a healthy understanding of this connection and think that spirit is going to say it's time for union. This is not a connection that you can allow people to run over you, not have good boundaries, not take care of yourself in many ways that you need to take care of yourself, as a human being, and think that spirit is going to say it's time for this connection to come into union. You must take care of you first in a 3D understanding for this connection to have space for you and your counterpart to come together. And this, and I, I'm not saying that there isn't any information out there like this, but I honestly can't say that I've seen much of it. And this is also what Spirit seems to have said to me, that these energies focus too much on the 5D and 4D. And I'm calling it that because all of the dimensions are spiritual. The 5D and 4D can be very, very intoxicating. And it can also be very, very, you can get lost in that energy. You can get lost in lucid dreaming, or lost in astral projecting, and and doing so many other spiritual understandings that connect to the 4 and 5D. But that's not necessarily what you are needing to do at this time to come into union. Those things will always be there. They'll be there whenever you're ready, whenever it's time. And it can hold you back if you're leaning too heavily into it and not taking care of what you need to in a 3D understanding. So those are the main two things that Spirit has given me to understand as far as the twin flame connection. I mean, there's many others, but I don't. Those are the two that I'm gonna completely like leave in this video. It's important if you want to come into union with your divine counterpart. It's important to take care of your 3D world, however you need to, whatever you need to. You never know what the case may be. It's different for everybody. It's unique to everybody. And the other thing is, again, if you have not spent time with just you, or if you have not um, sat in like the oneness understanding of this connection, made it sacred to you in a way of not necessarily sharing it or showcasing it to everybody, then that's something that it may be good for you to do, because it can be confusing, and it can further complicate your um path to union by connecting with so many other energies in relation to this. Just because they have a divine counterpart does not mean that you are on the same journey. Your journey is different. This connection really asks that you clear and create space for it. People get so good at doing it with the 4D and 5D understandings, but you really, really have to learn to do it with the 3D. Whatever the case may be. I know it's hard, but it's what's necessary. And I know some of you are saying, well, like, why do I have to remove all of that just for us to, really permanently come into union the way I want? Well, the truth is that divine counterpart connections are like crack. It's like the ultimate drug. And in the process of you going and balancing out your 3D life, you'll learn to better be able to deal with that understanding, where you can focus and do what you need to do, and put you first, so that you won't get into a state of having this connection in a lower vibrational way. Because you can have, a very long false union that is just full of lower vibrational understandings. Spirit is also just saying, trust in the divine timing of bringing this connection together. I know it's hard, but there's a lot of things that may be needing to be healed within you and within your person, that you don't realize. I know many of you may want to just think that you just want to experience every understanding of this person, but you don't. You know, there are certain versions of this person that you're not meant to experience, and there are certain versions of you that they are not meant to experience. You're meant to come together in a sense of balance, when you can, when most of the rough edges, or a lot of the rough edges, have been balanced out. One other thing that Spirit uh, seems to be calling me to speak about is in relation to when I said, you can, if you have met your twin flame, then you are meant to come into union with them. And the is in relation to the timelines you choose. You know, it's not one thing that I've been taught heavily by Spirit, is that Everything around you is a timeline. There are choices that you have to make. When I see things around me, I don't see, yes, I see them for what they are, but I understand them to be timelines. Your bed is a timeline. Your TV is a timeline. Your laptop is a time. All of those things are timelines. The moment you pick up your laptop and open it up and do whatever on it, you're stepping into a timeline for yourself. You choose to be in bed, you're stepping into a timeline for yourself because you could be doing something else. So understand too, it's about the timelines you choose. You have all the choice. What timeline is truly in your head the best to help get you to the union that you want? And a lot of times, this understanding can be something that is hard for you to do. Something that it requires may require work to do, or you're afraid to do. It's just that tough understanding is probably a hurdle that needs to be overcome to create more space for the union that you want. And spirit is funny because this energy understanding is connected. The 3D, the 4D, the 5D. If you clear this physical hurdle, more than likely it will also clear up the 4D and 5D understanding as well. It'll clear up those other realms of energy too, or begin the process of releasing and purging that. So yeah, it's you can't really skip a step or a phase. You can do all the growth in the other realms and still not take the necessary action in the 3D, and that be stalling you. There are some timelines and there's some choices that you have to make in your 3D world in relation to timelines. I mean, sometimes it can be the understanding as it's not time for the energy to be revealed to you because you need to sit with yourself and you need to heal and you need to just really, really purge. But that's the part that people really talk about. You um, doing the spiritual energy understanding. However, at some point you do get realizations of like what 3D move you should make, and it's important to act on them. Maybe usually it's something that's going to cause you anxiety and there's fear behind it. It can be anything. It really can. There's so many things it can be. It's not necessarily just about leaving a relationship that you're in or setting boundaries. It could be finishing school. you know? Maybe you need to get your degree to make room for this connection. Maybe you need to start a business and start your own business and get where you want to be there. Maybe you need to really do whatever work to get the promotion that you want. All of those things can be the things that are stopping you from having union. If you have not moved in your 3D, if you have not positioned yourself correctly, timeline wise, in your 3D understanding. So work on that as much as you can. Make a list, in your head of like, what are the things, be honest with yourself. What are the things that you feel are in the way at this time of you coming into union? And in the 3D sense, I don't mean just the emotional aspects and all the other stuff that is like saturated across the internet. That's fine. What 3D understandings do you need to shift and change to hold space and have room for this connection and not have it be where this person just tips in and tips out, you know? Because I know that's annoying, right? It's annoying to have that happen, right? How do you change it? What do you need to shift? You know, it's different for everybody. There's a pattern that I've understood working with many individual clients who are on the journey of union with their divine counterpart. The main pattern is that there are two different versions of energies trying or working to come into union. There are ones that may um, be on the long road of this understanding where they completely disconnect. They feel the connection, but they completely disconnect and move through what they have to, and then the union just comes. And they may disconnect for years, in some sense, and go through their life however they need to, trying to figure out and get themselves together however they need to, and then slowly things move together. And as it will do, it will do it naturally over time. It can, in some sense, but if you're wanting it to be this lifetime that it comes into that understanding. A better way of going about it is to really, really figure out how to create the space that you want now. What do you need to move around in your 3D? How do you need to work, balance out your life for yourself, you know? And you and listen, this is not saying you can skip a phase. That doesn't mean that you won't need to sit with yourself and make sure you release what you need to. But again, a lot of times these phases are interconnected. So, and and it's just that, people have not done that last phase of it, that 3D portion of it in some sense, where they take certain actions. The thing about it is that you could sit at understanding of not taking a specific action for the rest of your life if you choose. It's a choice. What change do you need to make? Sometimes people play chicken with this connection. They want to see movement physically on the other end of the spectrum with their counterpart before they make any change, not realizing that, you know, it's going to mirror if you do it. And it that doesn't mean it's going to mirror on your time frame. That doesn't mean it's going to do it on your clock. Spirit is the one controlling this energy at the end of the day. It knows what must be when certain energy must mirror. But you taking that action is letting spirit know that I'm ready. I do want this. I want to have this come together. And so I'm taking this leap of faith and trusting that you've called me to make this move how I need to. Maybe first in some sense, but I do think that a lot of people need to get over that first. Like, why am I doing this first and this person isn't? Because to be honest, it's not necessarily that you are. You and your divine counterpart have been going back and forth long before you ever met each other to get to one another. So there were times where you didn't know them, that maybe they were leading the connection in their environment, moving timelines to get to you. And there are times where you were doing it before they met you, or you met each other. You've both been doing it back and forth your whole life without realizing it. It's only coming together and meeting where it stalls, you know? It's hard. It's not easy to go back into just doing what you need to do for yourself, figuring out your life, but that is the way. Figure out what you want for you. Figure out how you need to move for you. And the more you do, the more you create boundaries, the more you create space for you, the other you can come toward you. The other you, the other you can't come toward you in a balanced way if you have not done that. If you don't have space for it in your reality, then how can it exist in a balanced way? Not when I say balance for a reason, because the triggering way that uh, makes people mad, irritates people, happens because to some extent the connection is wanting to remind you where you're meant to be headed, remind you that it's there, and that can be frustrating. I think I didn't mention, when I was saying that there are two forms of the connection: the long understanding, where people may just go down their path and do what they need to do and then come back into union, and they don't see their divine counterpart again until after they've done all that work. And then there's the other type of union that a lot of people exist in, where the person's running in and out of their reality all the time, and maybe it's even being in a connection with the person, and they leave and come back and leave and come back and leave and come back. It's because there's an understanding of needing to really, really set a boundary with that version of them. That this is not the version of the energy that I desire to have in my environment. So I'm not going to give any energy to it. So that doesn't mean that you won't feel sad or it won't be hard, but it's like really, really learning through this version of the connection to put yourself first, you know? And that's over the other you. Putting yourself first, as far as this version of you that won't show up correctly, this version of you that is not the more balanced version of your counterpart that you want to experience, saying, hey, you're not the version of the person that I know is meant to come towards me, so I need to protect my energy, you know because that version of the connection, I know it's comforting to some extent, but it's also not. It's frustrating more than it is comforting until it creates a rage in you, until it creates a detesting energy to some extent. You love them, you care for them, but also at the same time, you're just like tired, mentally drained, emotionally. I can't take it because, in some sense, spirit is wanting you to let go as much as possible, surrender. It's not a letting go as in like a this person is going to be apart from you forever, but surrendering this version of them to whatever journey they need to go on to get back to you the right way, you know, instead of creating all of this shadowing understanding that still needs to be healed. I know it's hard, but it is, it's either the understanding of setting that boundary and just allowing them to go struggle, because a lot of times it is for them to struggle. It is for them to go through some rough understanding of energy, some suffering. But you're suffering a lot of times. You're suffering dealing with this lower vibrational version of them that is not emotionally fulfilling you, and you're just being drained and giving to them and unhappy, but also feeling I have to have this person here with me. This connection can be had in a lower vibrational way and a higher vibrational way. You can experience for your whole life the lower vibrational understanding of this connection if that is your choice. I know it's a tough thing to hear, it's a tough thing to understand, but it is a choice. It's a choice to choose to deal with this version of them because you're afraid that they won't return. And the thing is that they're you. You can't leave you behind. You cannot leave you behind. You will always come into union. But Spirit wants you to learn to put you first, even over the other you. That doesn't mean that you don't wish them well. That doesn't mean that you can't pray for them. You can't always be hoping that they're, healthy and 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 whatever the case may be. But this understanding is learning to put this version of you first, the one in the body that you're currently in, and trusting the Spirit is going to bring you what you deserve in that person, you know? Because you can't mold them. You're not the one that's meant to mold them. Spirit is. Spirit's gonna probably put them through the fire. To be honest with you, the Spirit's gonna make them suffer. And part of the reason that you may experience the triggering, irritating, frustrating understanding of them is so you'll be okay with letting them suffer. Because usually the individual that's leading on this journey, the divine counterpart that's leading on this union journey, they don't want to let their counterpart suffer. They want them to be okay emotionally. They don't want them to go through any hard stuff. They would wrap them up and a hug and everything else. Sometimes you need to go through that pressure energy, and it's interesting because it's like you're going through that. You are going through all of the suffering energy that you don't want that person to go through. They have to go through it too. You cannot protect your other self from going through that. You're essentially saying that you will take on all of that burden for them as well as your own transformational energy because you still have to go through yours. So you could be, in some sense, slowing down your transformational energy that way. Things will move a lot quicker. Even though it's hard, I'm not saying it's easy. Things will move a lot quicker if you can. Because again, I know this is a very addictive connection. It's very much, you want to have it's the other part of your soul. You want your other self to be in the same place as you, room with you, all that stuff. But even with that being said, there's a lot of hard things that we have to do in our life that we may not want to do. It's either you want the temporary understanding of frustrating comfort because you're still frustrated a lot of times. You might even have good periods. Often you do. You have the good period here, good period there, and then you have the knockdown, burdensome, I can't take this, please, please, Lord, why? That type of energy. If you don't want that, then surrender your counterpart, this physical version of them that's imbalanced and needs to go through a transformation. Surrender them to the universe to take care of for you, to mold them. And in that time, Spirit's going to help you to understand what you even want in that person. Because a lot of times you also are going into understanding of self-discovery about everything that you want. You may think that you know what you want in a partner at this time, but spirit may have a lot to teach you, and it can't teach you until you are ready to focus on just connecting in oneness with it. Because spirit wants its time with you. It wants its time with you, and it wants its time separately with your divine counterpart. You both have to go through that understanding. It wants its time with you before it delivers you to each other in a balanced way, to teach you, to mold you, to help you understand what love should look like, the type of love you're deserving of. It has so much to teach you first. So, be ready to learn, be ready to create space. If you take nothing else away from like this audio as for on divine counterparts, take away the understanding that it's all your choice. It's all up to you. You can take this main road, which may be tough, or you can take a detour off that main road toward whatever understanding is more comfortable, not quicker, but comfortable. That's eventually just going to lead you back to the main road that you got to take if you want to come into the union that you want. It's completely up to you. Nobody else. Your timeline is yours to choose. No one else's. But that's all I have. I really hope this resonated with you. I do know that there are a couple of other things that Spirit has said that it wants me to speak about pertaining to divine counterparts. That it feels that there's a lot of just miscommunication, stopping people from getting to the union as soon as they want to, or in a quicker understanding. I mean, it's not to say that you don't need to, you won't spend time apart from this person for a certain amount of time, but it does not necessarily have to be as long as um, what some people have had to spend when they didn't have information and they were just going through their life. So maybe it took, years or decades. It doesn't necessarily have to be that, but it is all about the choices that you make. And are you willing to rise to the occasion and face so much within yourself, face so much within your 3D environment to get there, you know? Yeah. Because that I think that is a key understanding that Spirit is wanting me to really, really harp on. It's about dealing with your 3D environment how you need to, because it's not what people talk about. It's not the thing that they, for whatever reason on this journey, they do not talk about the fact that you may need to make some choices and let go of any ego understandings along the way of like, well, why do I have to do this first? Because you don't know that that's the case. Again, you have been on this journey. You have been on this journey toward union long before you and your divine counterpart ever met. You don't know what they've done first that you mirrored when you weren't in each other's vicinity. So this may just be your turn to lead, and there's an awareness that Spirit is allowing you to have to help you get toward the connection sooner. If you can release the ego fears and understandings, or ego angers and everything. And I'm not saying you don't have a right to those emotions. I'm not saying that. But at the end of the day, it don't change what you have to do if you want to really, really not even just come into union with your counterpart, but to be in a more emotionally fulfilled state for yourself. If you want to, because the journey to union is the journey to oneness and emotional fulfillment with just you too. It's just that the other you comes in. The journey to oneness. You and your counterpart are always one. Even if you feel that you're separate, you're one. You're always one. One in every way that truly matters. And the more that you can step into that energy and realize that, the more you'll more easily be able to release and surrender the connection and trust Spirit. Trust it. Trust your creator that it has your best interest, But that's all I have. I hope this resonates with you. And if it doesn't, I hope you find what does.